Caribbean American News presents Fatherhood, Empowering Men, a new weekly show hosted by Garfield Oliver every Sunday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Tune in for real talk on modern fatherhood, success, and strength. Live on Caribbean American News Media's Facebook and YouTube channel, AllSun, on 360 Radio. Caribbean American News presents Fatherhood, Empowering Men, a new weekly show hosted by Garfield Oliver every Sunday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Tune in for real talk on modern fatherhood, success, and strength. Live on Caribbean American News Media's Facebook and YouTube channel, AllSun, on 360 Radio.
Special good evening to all our viewers here on Caribbean American News Media Platform. It is good to be here with you tonight. I am going to be starting a new program, and that is geared towards our men. So it is all going to be about men. At some point, we will invite a woman, of course, to do a show, and she will address our females, but we're going to be looking at our men. Let me just look at our YouTube channel to ensure that we are firing up on all cylinder. But greetings, friends. Please share the live and tag a friend as we have beautiful interactions, of course. And as you know, the lines are open. This is not a political show. It is a show that deals with our men. We're going to take the show wherever it needs to go. We're addressing fathers. All right? So I'm going to give you some time to share the live, tag a friend. I'm going to be right here as you help us to share this new podcast dealing with our dads, our fathers. We'll have personal testimonies, of course. We will share from our hearts. We will have a conversation, and it is all in bettering our men in the society. So again, share the live and tag a dad. Tag a dad. Yeah, I like that. Tag a dad. Yes, you should tag a dad, right? So share the live and tag a friend. It is 8:08 in the Eastern Caribbean, but where I am, it is a very stormy time. The snow is blazing down at 8 minutes past 7. Schools are closed, and I was really not ready for for school tomorrow. Honestly, I, but we got the day off, all right? And we do not even have remote learning, so therefore we don't have to log in to be online with the children. So I'm excited. I'm happy about it. All right. So don't be mad with me because I'm happy, friends. Share the live and tag your friends, folks. We're getting ready to take off with our new program. I'm just trying to get our YouTube monitor up and running. I have one issue with one of the monitors. Not any major issues. I just need to charge the wireless keypad or notepad in order to get access. But we are going to be firing up as you share the live. All right, let's just look at our viewers on our Facebook page. We're going to big all our views up tonight on Facebook. You truly deserve it, huh? You are the first set of viewers for this new show for men. I want to hear from you. I want to hear from children. I want to hear from you, mothers, and share with us your experience. Share with us your experience, okay? Non-political. We're dealing with men, not menopause, but men. All right, thank you so much, my friend, my sponsor there in Canada is always on. Thank you so much for the stars. All right, so again, you got to share the live and tag a friend, okay? So again, we're going to be looking at dads, fathers in the society. Fathers in the society. Some people say, well, most of our men are either dead or in jail. That's what it feels like in some countries. Some mothers have had to be the father and be the mother now. Is that possible? We'll discuss that in this new broadcast. Compliments Caribbean American News Media. So we're going to look at 8 kinds of dad. 8. There are more, but we're going to look at 8. And I know one that might have been more highlighted in the society, and that would have been deadbeat or no beat. So I wrote that one down. Now, anytime I make sense, I write it quickly. All right? So deadbeat or no beat. And most of you will agree with me that some of you have had some very bad experiences with your dad. Some of you have had some wonderful moments with your father. How do you remember your father if he's not alive? How do you remember him? Do you remember him as a good person, one who was very close to you, one who was your protector, who was your provider? He was your everything. Or do you remember him as just not being there? Absent, deadbeat, no beat, no support, no security, no financial support, no love, no care, just deadbeat. How do you remember your father? Do you remember your dad as just being by the rum shop, sitting down by the road? Do you remember your dad as just being by the other lady, not with mommy, not with kids? How do you remember your father? And it's important that we have these discussions so that we can empower our fathers in the society. So we're going to look at 8 kinds of dad, and I'm going to leave the lines open at 929-586-1821. Now, this is not the regular programs that we have. This is a new social discussion that we're going to be having on dads, on fathers, all right? I can't see your comments yet, so when it starts popping up, then we shall get into it. Also, if you don't want to call to share your experience, of course, you can type it into the chat and I will highlight it on the broadcast, all right? I will highlight it on the broadcast, all right? So again, welcome to Fatherhood here on Caribbean American News Media Platform. A special good night to all our viewers here on the program. So let's look at the different type of kids, of fathers, okay? We're going to look at the first one, and that's the one I mentioned earlier in the intro, and that is absent dad. Absent dad. Now, some dad there's a whole sort of excuse that you will hear from absent dad that, oh, I could not have been there, mommy didn't want me to be there, grandma, this one, my circumstances, and all the excuse. But again, as we look at the absent dad, you would realize that not only is the dad absent, but the dad have caused a permanent scar, not only in the life of that child, but in the society on a whole. And we can't run away from the effects, the harmful effects of absentee dads in the home. All right? Some of you have been, and I know for the fact that we have a lot of good dads who have been there for the children. And I would say if you are a father and you have not been there for your kids, for your children, you're a bad dad, period. If you have not been there for your kids, because you don't have to have money to be there for them. It's okay, you have an injury, you cannot work, that type of circumstance, then you can at least call, you can at least communicate with your children. So some people will say that there is absolutely no excuse except for death. Not even sickness that you should be absent. You should be able to do some type of communicating with your children. So we will look at the different excuses at some point that some dads would have excuse, I would say, for their absentness, if that's a word, all right? So let's look at the first one, and that is the absent dad. Whether physical or emotional or spiritually, an absent father leaves a void in his children's life. And that's a fact. All right? No matter how absent you are, present absent, absent present. And the reason why I say present absent is that you are there, but you are not there. You're still absent. You are not providing the emotional or the spiritual or the physical support that your child would need. So you're absent. So it leaves that void in the life of that child. And what happens is that child, my friends, believe it or not, it affects the child in a way that also it affects the society. The school feels it. The community feels it. The government feels it. All society. Remember, I think when the Bible spoke about tithe and offering, it says you have robbed the whole nation. The leaders of the church were robbing the nations too. They were holding all the monies for themselves. So when you rob that child as a father of all these support, the emotional, the spiritual, the physical support, you are robbing the nation too. You're affecting an entire society. Yeah? An entire society. So, what we will do is that we will look at a number of And maybe some of you with your experience, think about it. I want you to think about it. And even children who are listening can think about your dad. I want all of us to think for a moment about our dad. So we're going to pause and we're going to have a moment of reflection, a moment of thinking, of course, when it comes to our dad. So we're going to take this small break. We're going to be right here with some music as you think about your dad. Good. So now that you have that moment, you've had that moment of reflection, I want you to think about some of the reasons that maybe your father has given to you. You know, some fathers jump into the lives of their kids at a later stage when the kids don't need a lot, don't require a lot from them. And so they jump in either when the child is, or the adult now is achieved, they're a doctor, they're a nurse. And so that shows up at his late stage, being proud and is very boastful of his child now, after the child would have gone through all these years of not having a father figure. Then father shows up to celebrate that child. Now, some people will say, well, what's wrong with him? At least he shows up. No, there is no at least he shows up at the last stage of a child, at the last stage where the child now has graduated and can survive on his own, thanks to maybe mother or grandmother. Showing up now with an excuse does not repair the countless damage throughout the years that that child would have experienced as a result of not having a father. And I'll tell you, when it comes to females, our daughters, when we as fathers are not in their lives, most of the times, if not all, but most of the times, those females, our daughters, ends up sometimes in very bad relationship. Not because they love the person that they are attracted to, but it's because they are looking for this father figure that they did not have while they were growing up. And so a lot of men take advantage of women like that, women who were damaged by their father. And this is hard talk. This is reality. This is true. And so some of these children, now old enough to have relationships, are entering into relationships not looking for a life partner most of the times, but are just trying to fill that void. So the reality is that woman, that child who is a woman now, has been damaged, hurt, affected by a father who did not show up. And most of the times, it's not that the dad is not on the same island or in the same country with the child. Most of the times, it is because the father is reckless. Most of the times, reckless, selfish, and lack of self-control. Is that true? You may disagree with me, but let's have a conversation, of course. All right? And so the emotional damage that a absentee father causes in the life of this child cannot be repaired by him just showing up at the last moment saying, I'm sorry. And sadly, most of these children, now adults, do not get the help, the psychological help, the professional help in order to get them on the road to healing. And most of them end up in divorce, bad relationship, like I said, hurting themselves even more. A lot of these women sometimes you see being battered by men and abused by men. When you look at the history of some of these women, it is most of the times as a result of a broken home. Dad is not being there. And the purpose of the dad in the house, in the home, brethren, is actually the dad is the one who provides a safe environment. When a child sees a dad in the home, that child should see a protector, a provider. Yeah? That child should see not a dad who is always screaming and shouting and cursing and drunk, or with a cutlass threatening people. No. That child should see you as one who is controlled, disciplined, a provider, a protector of the home, of the family, because you are the head security of your home as a dad. And that's why women and men should not enter into marriage or should not enter into relationship without following the process of courtship, getting to know you, getting to... Now remember, you're not going to find a perfect individual that will, pull you, meet all your needs, of course. And most of the times you will have those type of Cinderella stuff in your head. Of course, you would watch a lot of Young and Restless and those television series, and you go out there looking sometimes for what you see on television, something perfect, which you would not have, I can guarantee you that. All right? But one of the major cause of the dysfunction in the society is broken homes. The absence of a father, a man figure. And I don't care how much a woman steps in to take on these roles, she can never be a father. She can never be a father. She can function in the role, be the provider, be the protector, be all that the father should be, but it does not make her the father. She is still the mother. Like I said, the society in a whole suffers from these brothers who are not fulfilling their roles. So father availability and involvement is associated with academical success, as well as emotional and cognitive well-being gains in school from children. So, when the father is functional in the home, it affects the school in a positive way. Yep. It affects the child in a positive way. That child is able to succeed. And by the way, we have had a lot of children who do not have father figures in the home who have succeeded. But it does not mean that they are not suffering as a result of the void, the absentee dad. There are also some very bad experience that an absentee father can cause in the life of a child. One, the child grows up again, and that child is looking for a mate, getting ready to marry. The possibility is there because if the father was someone who was running around and having kids all over the place, the possibility is there that that child can run into his sister, his brother in one of the communities and not aware of it. You see the harmful effects of absentee dads and also wild dads who are absent because they want to run women. Absent because they got to make the rounds in the country. And so they abandon the home in order to satisfy themselves. Having kids in maybe every community in the society. And then these kids start meeting each other, not knowing that they're interacting with a brother or a sister. All right? But the greetings, Cleo and Candia, greetings to you. Welcome to our new series on the platform, and that is Fatherhood. All right? So here is a study from 2024, and that is from Corner and Bridges. More frequent and regular contact with the father is associated with more intense relationships and fewer adjustment problems in children. So let's read that again. More frequent and regular contact with the father is associated with more intense relationship and fewer adjustment problems in children. And that's why I told you that there are a whole lot of women who are being abused out there in the society. Not because they want to be abused, but again because of the absent father. Now, I don't know how it feels as a man to know that you have a child and you hear about the child, you see the child on the streets, you hear about the child, you know it's your child, and you are not doing anything about it. You have the means to provide. You have the means to provide books and school fees for that child. You have the means to ensure that that child has a balanced meal. You have the means. But you refuse as a man, as a father, to be a father to that child. And to the contrary, there are fathers who finds it easier to take care of other men's children instead of theirs. And that is true. that is the truth. Yeah, it is true. And so the father, like I was saying earlier, is aware that the child is his. There is no doubt about it. But then he refuses to take care of that child. That's what you call a deadbeat, a no-beat dad. And, you know, there are a whole lot of good dads in our society. They do their best. They are there for their child. And I'll tell you, my biological father was not there for me. He was not there, and that's true. Today, I got to be there for my father. My father is still alive. Didn't look out for my sisters. I believe I was his only son. He had a shop, still have a shop. Every time we would pass, the shop is stocked from the top to the bottom. And we would not get in, not even a pound of butter at times from him. So what I'm saying to you, I understand the effects of what I'm saying. But guess what? My mother met a St. Lucian fisherman who came to St. Vincent because the fishermen would have done, they used to do that a lot. They would come from one island to the other and stuff. And so he met my mom. When he met her, she had 4 of us. She had 3 girls and she had 2 boys when he met her. I was a little baby on the breast when he met her. He took her from St. Vincent to St. Lucia, where she started a new life with him, and we were with our grandmother. I was a little baby sucking. My sisters were one of my sisters were 1 year older. The other sister was a little older than my brother. I have an older brother. We were left behind. Why? Because she now had to struggle to meet our needs, to provide food and school and everything else. She had to fight that all on her own. As a single mother, an opportunity came where she could have gotten a better life in order to take care of her children, and so a sacrifice had to be made, and she had to leave her children behind in order to ensure a future for these children. There are mothers who sometimes would have to make very serious sacrifice. And that's why you don't condemn a mother when that mother have to leave her children with granny or with grandfather or auntie in order to make way for these children. It is only those who feels it, knows it, and that's a fact. And I'm telling you my experience. And so my mother got married to the gentleman in St. Lucia. My mother would write letters. She would send monies in the letters for us. I never forget it. Send letters, money for my grandmother to provide for us. And my father was right there. He was right there. And as I got a little older, my mother came to St. Vincent. And she took me. And I can never forget. that she took me to the E.T. Joshua Airport at the time. It was a little airstrip in St. Vincent. And we boarded. I can't remember if it was Air Martinique at the time or what airline, whether it's Liat or what airline was flying the route at the time. But I remember she took me to St. Lucia. Folks, the night that I got into Dennery, we were living in front of the sea that is at the fisheries. The fisheries, what they call the Daito, right directly in front of the Daito. That's where we reside. And I remember, because of the attachment to my grandmother and my sisters who I left behind, folks, I could not have adjusted. It was painful. It left a scar in me. I'm telling you, I cried all night. Every night, over for a month, I am crying and I'm hiding because I do not, even as a little child, I didn't want my mother to see me crying for my grandmother. And, as the time goes by, we start adjusting, and I got the reality check that this is where you're going to be living now. You're not going to be living in St. Vincent anymore. You're going to be living in St. Lucia. This is a new place. The people are speaking a different language, well, Creole, and English. At the time, it was more Creole in Dennery. And it's new. It's a new environment. I had a new male figure in the house, which was my stepfather. I have never been in an environment where I have father and mother. So this was new. It was a new experience. So let me just stop. The Westie guy, please, I don't want you to interrupt my show. That's disrespectful, what you're doing, and I think you need to stop, okay? This show is not geared towards what you're doing there. So I'm going to ask you to cease, or we will have to block you. You must know time and place, sir. And that's what I'm saying. A lot of people don't know time and place, and sometimes not because of their fault, sometimes because of broken homes, no manners. And that is true. We see it every day in our society, friends. And sometimes we blame those, we blame, do a lot of blaming on the kids and some of these adults, but they are suffering because of broken homes. And this is what I'm sharing with you tonight, right? So, for me, I adjusted. I went to a Seventh-day Adventist school that was in the village, and I started meeting new friends, and my stepfather provided for us. He was a good provider. Never left the home without food. There was always stuff. There was always food. Always. But I was not accustomed to a man being there as the provider, supporting us in that sense. So it was new, and therefore a lot of adjustments was needed for that. But it did leave a scar. It did leave a scar. And I also, during that period of time, saw a lot of stuff that I was not comfortable with. And so one year, my mother said, "Oh, yeah, we go to St. Vincent for vacation." And I was like, wow, we are going down to St. Vincent to see my grandmother, to see my sisters and everything else. And there was excitement. We were all happy. And I went, and it was a beautiful experience. And the time came for us to travel back to St. Lucia. Guess what? I complained to my grandmother. My grandmother said to my mother, he's not going anywhere. Folks, I was so happy. My mother left my suitcase and everything else, and she headed to the airport without me. And it was like a beautiful experience. Beautiful experience. Just staying in with my grandmother again. Because why? It was familiar space. For me, it was a safe space. She had provided security, that peace that a child needs, emotional support, of course. And so all this as a result of one absentee dad in the home. One absentee dad in the home, my friends. And that's why I'm saying it's very important that we empower our men in the society to be good fathers. And I'll tell you also, there are fathers who have not yet, even at this point, apologized to their children. There are fathers who are still not present, even though their children have grown up and have become leaders in the society and doctors and nurses and lawyers. All these fathers are doing is boasting that my child is a doctor. And you know what used to get me angry with my dad is every time I go to St. Vincent and I go to see him and his friends are there, he would be boasting, this is my son. And that thing would bother me all the time. I'm like, wow. And listen to me, just to call my dad was a hell of a task. Because I'm saying, he's not even saying, look, I was not there for you guys, blah, blah, blah. And, you try to, I'm like, say something. Say something. But, as children, you forgive your parents. And you try your best to move on. But I am saying to you, most of the times, a lot of these children, now adults, do not know how to move on. The scars are there. Some of them would have been raped. Why? Because of an absentee father. A matter of fact, there are some who have been raped by their stepfathers. There are some who have been raped by their very father. So no matter sometimes how the child this adult wants to move on, the hurt, the scar is there. Sometimes that adult would have had a child from an abusive relationship. And now that mother who had her own hurt because of an absentee dad is now being hurt again. And now she turns to that child because when she sees the child, she sees the father. She sees the child's father, and then she sees her father. What you call a double whammy. And then sometimes she takes out her frustration on the child who reminds her of two fathers, the child's father and her father. And the cycle continues, because in some of the countries, nobody talks about professional help and counseling. Just shout at the child, why are you doing that? And just curse the child off and move on. And the circle gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Why? Because of one father. one absentee father who was not there for that child. Huh? Think about it, friends. Think about how our society on a whole is wrecked because of selfish men, fathers. My sister, as she got older, she stayed with my grandmother in St. Vincent. And one of the neighbors came to rape her. My grandmother was coming from church. Both of them were coming from Wednesday night or Sunday night meetings in Kingstown. And as they got into the house, the guy was already in the room, sneaked into my sister's room. And she didn't know, my grandmother didn't know. And in the night, my grandmother just heard a scream. That guy came in the house to rape my sister. And when my grandmother, who is the protector now, without a dad, came to her defense, he pushed her. Now she's now fragile, of course. He pushed that woman and almost killed her. I remember it like yesterday. I was older now, and I jumped on a plane and head for St. Vincent at that time. All because there was not a dad in the home to protect. And my grandmother was the protector and almost cost her life to defend my sister's life. So when I speak to you, friends, I am speaking to you not because I want to speak, but I understand the harmful effects of absentee fathers in the home. They are on the blocks. Sometimes they are 2 houses away from that child. They don't show up at graduation. They don't show up when it's time for school fees and books. And that poor mother got to try to make that dollar to provide a meal for that child. And sometimes, and I spoke about it some time ago, sometimes these mothers in desperation now sometimes give up their bodies to men in order to ensure that there is a meal on the table. And this is the fact. There are studies verifying what I'm saying here. The mothers in desperation, and a mother, I am telling you, when a mother will do anything, a good mother will do anything to support her child. She would not sit there and allow her child to go hungry. That mother would close her eyes. She would bite her teeth. She would stay hungry to ensure that her child gets the last bread. And there are a lot of men in the society, men who are fathers themselves, would sleep with the mother, knowing that the mother is in a desperate situation and all she wants is for the survival of her children. And there are predators out there who would take advantage of that poor woman. And not to say she's bad, she's doing a bad thing. Not to say she's bad. She's just in survival mood. And sometimes I'm telling you, that poor mother, she goes through abuse upon abuse just to ensure that either there is a covering over the child's head, or the child can get some school books, or the child can get some food. a mother would defend her children with every last fiber in her being. In other words, when the father is missing in action, the pressure is placed on the mother. And most of the times the mother has a good mother herself who would step in to lend aid to her. So now you have a mother in distress, a grandmother looking at her child who is in distress, stepping in to help with the stress, the grandmother herself taking on stress in her retiree period where she's retired now. She have done taking care of her children, and now she's taking care of her grandchildren. The stress of a grandmother now, of a mother, seeing her own child in a very bad situation. That grandmother, friends, gets sick most of the times herself through stress and the extra burden that comes with that responsibility. And that mother or grandmother gets sick herself in the process. She has no time to rest, no time to breathe, because that mother herself would do what all other good mothers would do, would not just rest or relax and see her daughter and see her grandchildren in distress and not help. There are a whole lot of good mothers and grandmothers out there still. There are a lot of good fathers too, but there are a whole lot of very bad fathers who have damaged our nation, who have damaged our children, who have robbed the nation of peace. And so there is a danger, there are real danger of dads not being there in the life of their children. And like I said, you find some of these dads boasting on the side of the street, driving along with their new cars and the other lady and the lady's children in the back of the car, while their own child is on the side of the street selling some peanuts or some corn in a bag just to get a bread for tomorrow. And they have what? A Guinness, a glass of rum in their hands, and they're having a good time, sleeping around, having a beautiful time, when that one bear could have provided a bread for their child, for that child. But instead, the child had to be out there fending for themselves. And again, most of the times, if it's a female, there are predators out there who take advantage of these children. Take advantage of them. When that can be reversed. Fathers taking responsibility for their children. And that's why, for those of you who have been hurt because of an absent father, it is not your fault. One, don't blame yourself because your father is not there for you or not in the home. Don't blame yourself. The blame is on your father who was not there, not on you. You were only a child. And also we have abusive dads. An absentee dad is an abusive dad, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm sure you would agree with me that an absentee dad is an abusive dad because he exposes that child in his absence to abuse from others. And I want to speak directly to fathers. Fathers, did you speak to your children today? Did you see any of them? Did you hear from them? Did you call them? Do you know whether they're eating, whether their well-being is taken care of? Question, dads. Do you know right now where your kids are? Do you know if any of your children are going through depression? Do you know if any of your children are suicidal? Do you know whether any of your children are being raped? Do you know if any of your children are locked up by the police? Do you as fathers know where your children are? Question. Did you speak to them for today? Did you speak to them yesterday? Did you speak to them the day before? And I know the excuse. Well, the parents, the mother don't want, the mother's speaking bad about us or about me, and she's lying to the child, and the child hates me, and blah, 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 blah. You are the father. Hold the excuse and make efforts to mend fences. And like I said to you, no matter what excuse or what apologies you would give to your child, or no matter how good you and the child would be now, that child would have gone through psychological and emotional damage that cannot be repaired with "I forgive you." That child will still need professional help, and that's a fact. There are a whole lot of people in the world who needs professional help and professional support. Yeah? So, that is a problem in our society. All right, I just got an emergency notice there from the state. But these are real facts of life, friends. These are real facts of life that we cannot get away from. We can't get away from them. No, we can't. So, absentee dad, whether physically or emotionally or spiritually, an absent father leaves a void in his child's life that only he can fill. A child of an absent dad grows up feeling incomplete. That's a fact, because that child goes to interact with other children, and those children would be having conversations. Oh, my dad is taking me to football. My dad, we're going to church next week in a different community. My dad is going to be driving. My dad. And that child without the dad, it begins to affect that child emotionally. Yeah? So the child is incomplete. And like I said, there is nothing else in the world that can take the spot of a father. Nothing in the world that can take the place of a present dad who is involved in that child's life. Now you can type your comments. I will read it as we go along. And also it says, and will rarely be challenged to close that hole. A dad's present is like a megaphone intended to amplify a voice that loves and leads children through all their phase. So let's ask ourselves, what is holding me back from being fully present in my child's life? What changes can I make today to begin the restoration process? Fathers, ask yourself the question, what is holding you back? What is holding you back from being present in the life of your child? Think about what is holding you back. Think about it for a moment. Think. All right? An abusive dad. So we have the absent dad, we have the abusive dad. The abusive dad is very dangerous, I'll tell you. All right? The trauma that a child goes through as a result of an abusive dad also leads to sexual malfunction when that child grows up. All right? Especially the female. What happens when a dad abuses a child, it leaves an eternal scar. And that's a fact. It leaves an eternal... Now, there are different levels of abuse, which we'll get into. The most popular abuse we have is physical, beating and punching. You know, back in the days, parents would think that breaking the spoon on your back or breaking the pot, denting the pot on your head, you know, would solve the problem, of course. And, you know, they will say to you, well, the Bible says spare the rod and spoil the child. So therefore, your rod is a pot. Your rod is beating that child to the point of blood, leaving marks on that child's skin. Many of you who are adults now are walking around with a lot of marks that you have gotten from your parents. Is that true? Yes. Most of the times people would say, well, the father is not all that, you know, abusive when it comes to beating and punishing that child. Most of the times mommy would lose her mind. Well, to each his own. Each of you would have different experiences, of course. You know, my mother, anything that is closer to her, when you when you do something wrong, that's what you get. So if you're close to the stove and there's a pot, then you get the pot. If you're close to the washing machine and there's a sheet or a towel that is wet, then you get it too. If you're close to the tamarind tree or the guava tree, then that is exactly what you will get from her. Some of you know that I heard a child say that, a lady said that my mother was so skillful. My mother would just know when to make that swing. My mother would know exactly. And some kids have become so skillful in dodging or ducking in time from that swing that, you know, it sometimes it gets funny, but the abuse is not necessary. But we talk about sexual abuse in children. And I said it earlier, the fact of the matter is that there are one too many adults who were sexually molested by their parents. One too many. And I pause because I've been getting a lot of these reports. And the last one I got was last week. Last week, when an individual said that her father was the one making sexual advances on her while she was young, a little child. And some of you would have heard those stories, of course, of fathers molesting their children. It's traumatizing for that child. And it gets worse as the child gets older. A lot of people you see out there acting funny. If you dig deep enough, you'd realize that they are hurt individuals. A lot of people that you see acting funny in the society, either they act irrational, they're out of control, they're always screaming, they're always cussing, they're always talking about somebody, they're always aggressive. If you dig deep enough, two things. Either they are the victim or they are the abuser. And their conscience is beating them. But for the child who is abused by the father. One lady told me, one lady who is 67, 60 something now, she said to me last week that her father would wake up in the night when the mother is sleeping. He would leave the room of his wife and he would come to the child's room to sexually abuse that child. And night after night, it would happen. In my evaluation of the individual over a period of time, I had already gotten to that conclusion that that person was hurt as a child. And I saw some patterns. And I was right. That person at the age of 60 plus going is still suffering because of an abusive dad. And that those individuals end up, if not 70 to 80% of the times, their relationships always ends up in divorce or separation. Why? Because the person or individuals have not gotten the professional help that they need. And every time it comes to sexual activities between the husband and the wife remembers what she went through, and it plays out over and over again in her mind. And she looks at her husband as a problem. Sometimes the poor husband is not aware that his wife was abused as a young child. And therefore and that's why before you get married, you got to go through courtship. Don't just meet somebody overnight and marry them. That's careless, it's reckless. I'm going to say that again. It's a big statement. Do not meet somebody overnight and marry them the same night. You're going to hurt yourself and you're going to hurt them. Each man needs to know himself and do himself no harm. Take time to know each other. And that's why, for me, I was engaged a lot of times because I was searching, looking, not for the perfect person, but we were taught in the Adventist church that we should, one, take our time and that we should date as much people as possible, especially when we are looking to settle down as young men. We were taught to date. We were taught to do different types of dating, large group dating, for supervision, of course. They would say to us that we should avoid the appearance of evil. So to do that, we got to walk. But there's certain, if you're courting and you start dating, most of the times you don't need to have a large group around you because there are personal things that you two, both of you, would have to start discussing at some point. But in dating, you do not have to date one person. All right? In courtship, that's where it is now singled down to one person. Right? You're now courting. So you went through dating. Now you're saying, okay, I like you. I can live with this bad habit, that bad habit. I can deal with that, of course. And because remember, not perfect. You're not looking for a perfect person. You also are looking for defects that you can live with. You understand what I'm saying? What you are doing in dating and courtship is that you are looking for defects in character in each of you that you can live with forever. So you don't want to just one day run into a relationship and then run into marriage, and then you wake up on the 5th day and you're like, what is this? Who is this? What is going on here? I can't take this. I can't live with this person. This person has emotional and psychological issues. I can't deal. And then what you do is that you create more psychological and emotional hurt to the person who you found out is already hurting. And the cycle continues. And that's why we are to encourage our children as fathers and mothers to go through this process of courtship and marriage. It helps you because there are a whole lot of people out there who are suffering from the lack or the absence of a father figure, and most of the times they are looking for a father figure. So what you will find is a lot of young girls in relationship with old men. I pause. Sometimes if you dig close enough, it is a woman looking for that father figure that she never had. Could be vice versa. Therefore, if you are not careful in such a union, you run into a lot of problems that you would not have bargained for. And you as the older man start seeing this young person with all the energy, and now you don't have all the energy, or you might have all the energy, but as you get older, there's certain things that you're not too much, you're not flexible in completing, whether it's running, whether it's keeping up with, these young people now. And so you end up with this gap and a whole lot of issues because of not being compatible. So the abuse that that child would have gone through in his or her, because men are being raped too by their fathers, the psychological, emotional stress that that child would have gone through, because you have not paid attention, it goes into the relationship, and trust becomes a major problem. And you would think that the person don't trust you because they don't want to trust you, but they're not trusting you because they did not trust their dad. Their dad broke that trust, by the way. And so when they see a man, they see something or someone that should not be trusted. And so they will kind of love you in one eye, but they're watching you in the other eye. If you understand what I'm saying. And you now think that the person is a bad person because you do not understand that the individual is a hurting person who have not gotten closure. And they know that their dad is out there. That dad is out there. And in their mind, they're thinking whether daddy did it to somebody else. So there might be other victims in their mind. And so the torment and the emotional stress that go through. And some women and some children, some male or females, what happened is that they go through depression. And in the Caribbean, we say, oh, they go mad. They lose their mind. They're mad. And so we have this stigma, this thing about them that, you know, that one crazy, that one. Sometimes the person just went through a temporary breakdown, emotional breakdown, emotional stress. That if it's dealt with early intervention, of course, then they can pull sometimes themselves back with support. But if it is something that is not taken care of and continues, then that person becomes a person who would have to depend on medication in order to level them off or to control, you know, that chemical imbalance in the brain. And so fatherhood, my friends, is something that is divine, inspired by God and not man. It's a sacred responsibility. And that's why you don't go all over the place just having sex and making kids. You don't do that, friends. You're robbing the whole nation. You're damaging the society. You're damaging the society. But there are too many abuse, and we hear of these rape cases too often. If a father forces himself on his child, it is rape. It is nastiness. It is true. There are too many adult women who are stressed out emotionally because they were raped by their father. Their children, their adult who have not gone to their father's funeral service, or have not, the father died and they never had a conversation with the father. So there is no closure, there is no reconciliation, there is no I'm sorry. When my stepfather was dying, right, when he got sick, I brought him to New York for medical treatment. And I remember when I was with him at the hospital, I was there with him every step of the way. And I remember when I came in, I took him upstairs because he was doing the tests and stuff. And so I went to get something for him. I wanted him to get a comfortable hospital, slipper that he can keep his foot warm. And I remember my stepfather, when I came in, I saw him depressed. I saw his spirit shattered. And I went and I asked him, what happened? And he said to me, yeah, the doctors came. And I asked him, what did they say? And he's like, oh, yeah, yeah, man, everything is fine. And I'm like, no. And I said, hold, don't say anything. And I called the doctor, and I brought the doctor to the bedside, and I asked the doctor, what is going on? And the doctor looked at him, and he said, should I tell him? And he said, tell him. And I was like, okay. And the doctor told me the news, the bad news. And I remember the doctor left, and I looked at my stepfather. And, he was very stressed, and he said to me, I want to go down to put some stuff together. And he looked at me and he said, I am sorry because he used to be shouting a lot in the house. And one time he lifted his feet to kick me. He was drunk at the time. He lifted his foot to kick me and stuff. And he looked at me and he said, if I have done anything wrong to you, I'm sorry. You have not done anything to me. You're a good son. I never forget those words. And he was so mature that when I say, those macho men, they don't cry, they're always strong and noisy. He was one of them, a fighter. And when I saw him broken at that point, and he spoke those words to me, I told him, it is okay. I will do everything in my power to make sure that you're okay, that you're comfortable. I remember I took him home from the hospital, and my wife went to Barbados, so both of us had the time together alone. And we would cook. I would cook. At the time, my brother-in-law had bought a house in Queens, so I would come up to help with the repairs, and I would bring him with me. And he would just sit in there, and I would take him to church. And sometimes I realized that he's tired. I would take him home, and then I would go back to the church, and we had a beautiful time. But he was able to say, I'm sorry if I did anything to you. And that was closure. But there are a whole lot of adults who have not gotten the opportunity, whether it was rape, whether it was just an abusive father who would shout, because shouting and screaming, he used to be getting wild up when he gets, back in the days before he became a Seventh-day Adventist, when he used to be drinking and everything else, and coming by the church in his underwear and everything else. We used to call him Gibraltar. But then we saw the transformation when he got baptized and he stopped the drinking and everything else. But even still, he was still fighting with anger and aggressiveness. But then he apologized at that stage. And both of us, as stepfather and son, I looked at him as my father. He took care of me like his own. Took care of me like his very own. And the least I could have done for him was to look out for him. Because of that good deed, he became my father. And I learned a lot from him. A whole lot. You hear what I'm saying? But a whole lot of people have not got the opportunity to have these bold conversations with their own father. My father actually is alive, and I now got to travel to St. Vincent to be with him. I got to travel now to ensure that, together with my sisters and everything, I have a sister in St. Vincent who's working at the hospital there, and all of us, my sister in St. Lucia, my sister here, we now got to come together to ensure that our father is getting the best care, that he's okay, that all is well. Because we have a responsibility, even though he was not there for us, we have a responsibility as children. Him not being there for us does not take away the fact that he is our father. And therefore we have a sacred responsibility to ensure that he's okay. But I am saying to fathers, you got to make amends with your children. Make amends for your children's sake. Those children, when you pass on, will have to continue life. And they will either continue life as a child who got the closure, or a child who never heard from his father, his or her father. I'm sorry. I love you. They will have to go through life knowing that their father never apologized, never made wrong right. This is the importance of our fathers being fathers in the home. And mothers, if you leave the man, you're not with him anymore for whatever reason, do not stop him from having access to his children. Allow him to be in their lives. Allow him to have moments with them. Allow them, if the father is taking care of the children, let the children know that father is still providing for you. You got to let them know that, because they're going to look at the father as not being a provider when he has been a provider. And that's a fact. There are too many women who are taking monies from the fathers, and the children are not aware of it. There are too many mothers who are they're getting the rent paid or the mortgage paid by the father, but they are not telling the children that daddy is responsible. Even though we are not together, daddy is responsible for this meal today. Daddy is responsible for your school books today. Daddy is responsible for the new pair of shoes that you have on your feet. Daddy is provided. He's not here with us, but he's providing for you, little Johnny or little Teresa. Mothers need to encourage their children to be respectful to their fathers. Most of the times, you don't need to empty your hurt into your children, mothers. If the father hurt you, try to deal with that hurt, you and the father. Maybe you would have dealt with it by leaving him. But I am saying to you, don't pour that hate into your children. It hurts them. And many of you are good on having certain conversations with your children, certain conversations that you should never have with them, as far as I'm concerned. How bad daddy is, how bad daddy was, and daddy used to do this, daddy used to do that. And you constantly keeps the negative before them. But you will never speak of the good moments. When you and daddy was in favor, the good moments that you guys would have had together, you would never share it with the child. What you're doing is that you're pouring in hate into the child towards the father. And that child will set up a barrier between them and daddy. And that's true. So mothers also can hurt their children by pouring in their hurt into the minds of those children. All right? So we're going to close soon. So we did the absent and abusive dad. And we have the demanding dad. Demanding dad push their children to excel with a little of no regard of their children's actual desire. You know, there's some parents who say, you have to become a doctor, you have to become a nurse, and that's the only thing you'll become. And they force their child. They take away the child's choice of choosing. There are a lot of dads who does that. It's in the family. It's the family. It's in the family history. My grandfather was a doctor. My cousin was a doctor. My father was a doctor. His father was a doctor. And then you have to become a doctor. Or you got to be. The child wants to be a farmer. You tell the child that he got to become a doctor. The child loves agriculture. But you are forcing that child into something that the child don't believe he can succeed in. Well, some people say, well, the father has the wisdom and would know better. But what about the child? What the child really wants? What the child is good at? Yeah? And if you're a good dad, a good mother, you would observe that child and you will know that that child has an A+, or that child has a desire for certain things, and you should support it. But we're not going to go any further. I'm going to read some of your comments, but we will continue. With this program. It's going to get interesting, and we're going to be hearing from some parents, some children who were hurt by their father, their parents. We're going to be next week having the continuation of this program, Fatherhood. Let's just take a 2-minute break, and then we'll read your comments and dismiss. All right, and I'll get that group name for you. That group is, by the way, St. Lucian group in Dennery, and Brian Henry, that miserable Brian Henry from Dennery, is part of that group. I went to a function, I believe in December sometime. Was it December? And I'm telling you, the experience there, I recorded it. It was that group. I love that group. Yes, it's a beautiful St. Lucian got talent. Huh? All right, and the other countries too. A lot of talents in the other countries. All right, so let's just read your comments and then we shall go. All right. By the way, I am off tomorrow. I'm back to school on Tuesday. God's willing. I'm so happy. I wasn't ready because I had we had a week off, and the washer and the dryer I got it out. So we brought in a new one. I had to install it, I put it in a different area in the studio. I actually put it, so I had to rerun pipes and everything else, drain pipes and air vents. So it took me a while, and then now I have a new spot upstairs that I am, put in some compound and sand into paint and put in shelves and everything else. So I was not really ready for those miserable children tomorrow. But they're good children, of course. They're good children. All right. So let me just read your comments on the bottom up, and then we shall dismiss the show. Jules says, enjoy the show. Thank you so much, my friend. It's going to get more interesting because I am sure I'm going to ruffle some feathers of men, of brothers, and they're going to come and start saying a whole lot of stuff, but we're going to continue highlighting, and we'll bring to you real stories from kids who were abused by fathers, and how it affected them. And we're going to hear stories of some of their recovery, how they overcome it, how they were able to get the necessary help and, be productive in the society. Catherine, my friend from Denray, Charles, she says, good night, everyone. Positive message. Thank you so much, my friend. Rhonda, good night to you. Elita, my friend, greetings. She said, it's true. Joanne says, she's saying good night to her love. Elita. Yes, Saint Ange. Very powerful message. Thank you so much. glad that you're here and you enjoyed. Joanne says, good evening, Pastor, and everyone listening. Thank you so much. We also have Elita saying, good night, Pastor Garfield. St. Rose, that is very true. Thank you, St. Rose, for agreeing with me. And my friend Marie, greetings to you. She said good night. And Jean Franz, my sister. I'm doing well. I am doing well, St. Lucita. Thank God. Great. Julita says that's true. So she's agreeing with something that I said earlier. Sharon, how are you, my friend Sharon? Good night, Pastor. Yeah, I feel on my Flabo is there. I'm not seeing a lot of people there. Lucita, greetings. How are you? Westy says, Lucita, JP, okay, my friend. Well, I didn't know you all know each other, Westy. Lucita says, stop telling him what to say. That is his platform. Behave yourself, okay? Yeah. I don't think he understood what I was doing tonight because he accustomed to once the live is on, it is either political or something to that effect. So I think he thought that is what was happening, interrupting the independence celebration in St. Lucia, but we're not interrupting anything at all. Matter of fact, we want our families to be independent. We want the fathers to help to liberate families, from this hurt that we have inflicted on the society. And that will be the best independence present, what we're doing here tonight for our society. Mm-hmm. All right, Lucida says, stop telling him what to say. This is his platform. Behave yourself. Yes, we did that one already. Weston says, blocking me shows your level of maturity. So basically he's saying if I block him, I am not mature. But I didn't say I was going to block him, of course. Weston says, well, speak to St. Lucian's independence. Okay. We dealt with that already. An author says, had heard it's real cold in New York. Well, I didn't go out, so I believe it's cold because I just got an alert of the inclemency of the weather. It's snowing outside a lot. So I'm going to just maybe cue in a movie and be a good dad, of course. I'll tell you about my experience being a dad. I have one daughter, and I will tell you my experience with her. And I'll tell you, it's amazing. And I always threaten her. I always say to her, I'm going to hit you a hard lash. And she looked at me once and she said, well, you always say you're going to hit me a hard lash, and you never did. You never did. So I was like, oh, man, I should have given the first lash. When I told her I was going to give it to her, I should have given it to her, of course. She would have never made that statement, of course. But we'll talk about my experience as a dad. And then one night, we're going to be cooking together. We're going to be having a cooking show. Yes, right here. And you guys will decide what I am going to cook. I am going to sample it when I finish cooking, and I'll tell you, of course, I'm going to be biased at the end of the cooking. Okay, so Arnold, greetings to you. God bless you, folks, and I hope that you have yourself a beautiful night or the evening. To those of you who are in the snow, be very careful. Be careful out there. The roads are not good. Matter of fact, at 9 o'clock in the next 10 minutes, all vehicles are going to be off of the roads here in New York. Walmart was closed, I believe, early today, and many of the stores. So there's a total shutdown, and it seems like we're going to be in for a wintry breeze. I saw as the snow started melting, I saw like the lilies started popping up like spring. So I don't know what is going to be this year for spring. I honestly don't know what it's going to be, but the times are just different. Everything has gone haywire, topsy-turvy, and we just pray and trust in our God, and we'll be all right. So, folks, have a beautiful rest of your evening. So long. Bye-bye.
Caribbean American News presents Fatherhood, Empowering Men, a new weekly show hosted by Garfield Oliver every Sunday, 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Tune in for real talk on modern fatherhood, success, and strength. Live on Caribbean American News Media's Facebook and YouTube channel, All Sun, on 360 Radio.